This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland one of the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers are officially the number one seed in the Eastern Conference, coming off of their win against the Chicago Bulls. We are recording now, post-game, after a close loss to the Indiana Pacers. Cavs now fall to 1-2 against the Pacers this season. A possible second-round opponent. Concern? Carter Rodriguez, how you doing? Are you scared?
I'm shaking my boots, Justin.
You just know it's going to be used against us. Someone, a few weeks from now, because I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think Indiana's getting out of the first round of the playoffs. Someone a month from now is going to look at the regular season record and be like, hey, Indy, get some games off of Cleveland,
It's definitely going to happen. But it was a fun game, man. I know we'll talk about the one seed as well. But sometimes these we're not playing almost anyone games are a slog.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're really, really fun, and everyone gets to, test the space a little bit more, gets to play around, gets to try stuff. And I just thought the Cavs played really, really hard this whole game. And I really appreciated that level of effort. And obviously, part of it is guys who don't always get to play, gave great effort. Guys like Tristan, guys like Craig. But I thought Dean worked his ass off. DeAndre Hunter had 11 rebounds in 32 minutes. Isaac was guarding and switching and fighting. I just really liked their effort up and down the roster. Obviously, Jerome and Hunter had super duper fun games. Sam Merrill goes 5 of 8 from 3 as well. Heck of a game for Kevin Harlan and Reggie Miller, who had a lot of fun calling this
pure
one.
Professionalism. And
their last game on TNT, last regular season game they're ever going to call.
Yeah, so, and the Cavs did their part with a high effort game. I agree with you. These games where, guys are out of the lineup, particularly when there's nothing to play for, when something's on the line and, this situation is a result strictly of injuries where, it's not even an option for guys to play, that's not fun. But in these kind of, very, very low leverage, at least from a Cavs standpoint, games, it's a ton of fun.
An elective bench night. Yeah,
I think back to, the Jordan McRae game, game 82. I think that was 2016. Didn't he have 36 points or something like that?
I don't remember.
It was so much fun. Someone's going to look that up and correct me, I'm sure. But I feel like he had 36 points. But that was a ton of fun. And, I was sitting here going into this game. I thought, there's a chance that they can win because, and I don't want people to discredit Indy. Indy's been playing great since the All-Star break. I think that they've really rounded into form. I just think that it's human nature. We've seen it happen with the Cavs over the years when teams are missing guys. It's just impossible to get up to the same level as if both teams are fully healthy and it's a TNT game and all that kind of stuff. You're going to have some slippage in those spots. So I thought, there's a chance that if the Cavs shoot well from 3, that can be a bit of an equalizer. They can hang around. And the other thing that was rattling around in my mind was Ty Jerome. He owes us this. For what he did to the Cavs in this exact situation with the Golden State Warriors 2 years ago, he needed to do it once for us. And unfortunately, I think he hit his minute restriction the team took a long-term approach there with not
I think you could call it a soft minutes restriction for all the fellas tonight.
yeah. The way that they ended up closing the game.
I kind of can't believe DeAndre got to 32 minutes.
Me either. I thought maybe, that last 9 seconds we'd see Sam sub in to maybe take the 3-pointer. I definitely thought going for the 3 in that situation was the right call. You don't want to chance 5 minutes against the Pacers. I think they may have pulled away at that point, particularly with who we were playing. But, it was a really,
Jalen
really
almost
fun.
sent us there, baby.
Yeah, he had a few shots that rimmed out. Just, that missing some time with the injury, just that touch, just a hair off. If any of those go down, we're going to OT. But I thought it was, in all seriousness, I do think it is a bit of a testament just to the offensive infrastructure that the Cavs have, where everyone kind of knew where they were supposed to be. It didn't look super disjointed. Yeah, there were times where guys had a little bit too much dip on their chip and would lose control or try to do just a hair too much. But you're going to have that in these situations. But I thought the ball movement was there. Guys knew where to go. They're sinking into the corners or rising up into passing lanes. I just thought, it just goes to show you how much understanding everybody has up and down the roster of what their responsibilities are. And I thought the effort was there, and obviously the execution was great for the guys that were available.
Yeah, and it just goes to show the togetherness, and we've buried the lead, because how about Kenny Atkinson?
Oh,
letting the refs have it.
Who showed more intensity than my coach of the year, Kenny Atkinson?
Yeah, I mean, there is something special about, I haven't heard any post-game availability. Actually, I don't know if you do availability if you get tossed.
I don't think so. Maybe that was the motivation there.
Maybe, but I wonder if you asked him and you could give him some true statement. He's like, "Hey, man, Tristan almost never gets to play. He made a great play and didn't get what he deserved, and that's not cool, And your coach being willing to go to bat, not just for the number 1 or number 2 guy on the call sheet, but down to your 14th, 15th men." I think is really, really special, really reflective of and for a second when I was watching, I was like, is he laying it on? Is he going, is he trying to
is this kayfabe?
A little bit, I just wondered, but I don't think so. I think he was legitimately pissed on behalf of Tristan. And I thought it was one of those things that was really reflective of every time you listen to any pro that played for Kenny or plays for Kenny, they talk about what a psycho he is. And I do think there is something to it,
yeah.
It doesn't matter that the Cavs don't need the game. It doesn't matter that Tristan's in. If Tristan gets a foul, he deserves the call. And Kenny, let the officials hear about it.
And not only that, he got shoved in the back while he was in the air. That's a dangerous play. Obviously, it's a little different than someone on a fast break situation. But, at Tristan's age,
didn't get too far into the air either.
No, he really didn't. And as a fellow 34-year-old, I can relate to not getting too far in the air. And I can also relate to, the times that I do get up into the air, even if it's just getting off of my bed, that landing hurts. You don't need to be shoved in the air. That's a dangerous situation to be in. So, Kenny's out there standing up for, the senior member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, standing up for a Canadian. We need more of that in society. Not all teammates support their Canadian teammates equally here, Carter. And I think sometimes you've let me down in that way. But
I'm sorry, I'm no Kenny Atkinson.
But he's setting that example, right? He's setting that leadership, and it just goes to show you if the guys are out there giving maximum effort, you're going to do the same thing as a coach, right? It's a two-way street. It's a two-way relationship there. So I thought that was fun. And then, I obviously the heavy lifting in this game, outside of the good effort you got from Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro filling in the gap. Sam Merrill did a great job, but the real heavy lifting was done by the Virginia Cavaliers in this game. DeAndre Hunter with 23 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. Ty Jerome, 24 and 6 in 25 minutes. Just awesome performance from those guys. And it's cool to see guys that have accepted a lesser role, right? DeAndre Hunter coming over from the Hawks, he's playing fewer minutes. He is kind of in a very conserved role. Ty Jerome has been in kind of this low 20-minute range. Not that he got a whole lot more minutes, but it's kind of neat to see those guys spread their wings a little bit more. You got to feel more of DeAndre Hunter as an isolation scorer. And it was also interesting to see him playing, particularly in those lineups with Tristan and Dean. He was playing a lot of small forward, and it was kind of cool to see him take advantage of some of the mismatches there where he had such a length advantage.
Yeah. just a really, really fun DeAndre game, and there were some times where, to your point, like there was a little bit too much dip on the chip and he had to do a little bit too much playmaking. And, this is such a handsy Pacers team, but like I really did love that play where he got Halliburton switched on him. And Halliburton is a big guard in terms of height, but like it was a really nasty, just, I think DeAndre at his not best can be a little bit of a horizontal player. It was really nice to see him just kind of put his his shoulder into Hallie's chest, knock him back and get an easy bucket. Like I thought the 3-point game obviously was on point. I thought the physicality was on point. I really did like to see him rebounding, especially in a game where, everyone kind of knew Jarrett was going to cross the 15-minute threshold, then go away. Yeah. So you kind of just needed it up and down, and like Indy still got a few offensive boards, but the Cavs offensive rebounded the Pacers in this game. So like despite playing no center like half the game, well over half the game, so yeah, it was really fun to see from DeAndre. And then Ty is I'll tell you what, brother, I feel like the 3-point slump might be over. His last 5 games, he's 3 for 4, 4 of 5, 1 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 6 from 3.
It's pretty good.
He's back to taking the hard threes. He's been hitting the threes that are like those momentum shifters.
Yeah. For the team.
He hasn't been playing crazy heavy minutes either, hasn't crossed 26 minutes in any of these games on those nights where he's really shooting the ball. And, we've been talking about wanting to see this team get over that hump, especially the guard trio in terms of kind of that nightmare march from a shooting perspective. And seeing Ty lacing the net like that was really good to see.
Yeah, I think your hope is that Darius and Donovan, they're going to get a week off here through the play-in week. That the time off is going to do them the same amount of good that it did Ty, right? Like he was definitely in a big slump prior to that. Darius kind of showed a little bit of life there from 3, going 6 of 10 against Chicago. He was awesome in that game. The funny thing about small sample sizes is prior to that game, we go on the podcast, talking about how the team's been shooting and all that. Darius going 6 of 10 in that game, it's bumped up his 3-point percentage for the last 12 games to 37%. Like
he's fixed. We did it.
Right. Like, and that goes to show, the ability to use creative sample sizes here. And particularly when you're talking about a 10, 12 game sample, how much a single result, whether it be to the extreme to the negative, which when you look at Darius's poor shooting month, you had that game like where he took the fall against the Knicks and just shot like crap. Like I think he had some extreme examples on that side, but any one result can really, really skew the overall sample. And I've had beef with our buddy Anthony Lima, who, I think some of it's a little bit of a bit, but when he goes
about
all
kayfabe.
But yeah, I have love and appreciation for the art that he does there. But when he drags the sample all the way back to the start of February, and I point out, I'm like, well, that's not fair, because the first 8 games of February, which was pretty much all the games that they played in February, he shot 48% from 3. What are we doing here? You're extending the sample here because of some late February outliers. But, obviously, whether he was shooting well going into the playoffs or whether the slump continued, whatever the case may be, it's not going to change things. Like you're basically getting a fresh start. It's basically a training camp through the play-in week for the teams in the 1 and 2 seed. So it's going to be really interesting to see what that time off does for them. But one of the things that gives me confidence when you talk about the break going into the playoffs is look how we started the season. Like, look what, it's not like we took some time and needed to kind of find our footing and ease into the regular season. Cavs had a training camp and then they hit the ground running. Didn't we go winless in the preseason and everyone was kind of freaking out about that? Or was that this year or was that
yes.
last year?
I don't know if people were freaking out, but we did go winless in the preseason.
There was a little bit of freaking out, trust me. And you know, it was, oh, you're not carrying momentum, you're not going into this the right way, and it didn't matter. So
get these boys to Sarasota for play-in week.
I've got a high level of confidence, you know, going into this first round series, and you know, obviously no Garland, no Mobley, no Mitchell, no Strus in tonight's game. A limited dose of Jared Allen. TNT did report that Garland and Mobley are expected to play tomorrow. I would assume that also means that Max Strus would be playing. No sense of those guys playing a back-to-back, but it'll be interesting to see. I think Donovan's probably done for the regular season, but you know, I think if those guys are playing, I think they have more than enough to beat the Knicks tomorrow.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I'm really just glad to see them get that break. I think you made a really good point that this team did well to start the season with that extended break. I mean, they did unbelievably well. And speaking more broadly, they've mostly hit their worst stretches of the season when they're playing a bunch of back-to-backs for, 3 out of 4, going weeks without playing in the same game in the same city twice in a row, and all that stuff doesn't happen in the playoffs. So I think it's a good point that any layoff I'm not super worried about, especially for these guards who I just think they are. I do think there is a little bit when you're not like LeBron and you're not like this unbelievable thing. You are a little bit more of a Swiss watch, where you want to get all the grains of sand out of gears. You want to be at 100%, as close to 100% as possible. Especially since God knows the playoffs are likely to knock you down 5 or 10% over the course of a long run. So we saw that with a guy like Steph Curry. It's no slight. Where the Cavs strategy literally was like, we're just going to beat this guy up. But by the time we get to the end, he's just going to be fried. How many times have we heard Tyronn Lue call that 2016 finals a battle of attrition? David Griffin, the same thing. And so, yeah, I mean, you really do want to see these guys in tip-top shape. You want to see them any usage kind of minor maladies. You want to see them kind of even out and just kind of reset back to your resting state, because I think this Cavs team at their fully healthy rested state is as good as any team in the league.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think on the last podcast, I thought you brought up a good point about how you come out in the first round isn't necessarily going to guarantee what your playoff run is going to look like. It's not the most meaningful thing. But I do think coming out and having a strong first round series and shortening the amount of games they have to play, I think that's going to be something that would be to their advantage. I think it really is important. You brought up the
I seem to
example.
recall you making fun of me for saying that would be to their advantage, and here you are saying it.
And there's no consistency with anything I'm saying. I'm working on instinct here.
It's definitely good to win more games than you lose. Groundbreaking stuff, Carter. And here you are.
That does sound
parroting
like me.
my take.
Oh man, that does sound like me, but I can't be sure, man. I didn't have Zoom AI companion recording that conversation. I should have, because only I can do my best work, Carter. Zoom AI companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI companion. Carter, do you want to take a little trip down memory lane here?
Sure.
We do a little prediction sheet in our Chase Down Discord to start every year. Do you remember where you had the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Did I have 54?
You had 54. No, you moved up to 55, and it forced me to go up to 56. So both of us were wrong there. But do you remember where you had them? What seed you had?
I think I had them at the 2 seed, maybe.
Yeah, you had them at the 1. You and I both had them at the 1.
I thought this team had a shot at the 1 seed. I didn't think they would have a shot with the Celtics being still this good.
Your top 8 was Cavs, Celtics, Bucks, Sixers, Heat, Knicks, Hawks, and Raptors. A little embarrassing for you at the end. You did not finish strong.
No,
you
I
had the Nets in 9.
I don't know what I don't think I was being that thoughtful.
You obviously weren't. I absolutely crushed this.
Whatever. I got the 1 seed. I remember, by the way, during the summer, before all the dust had settled, I was very confident that this team could be the 1 seed. I think I was one of the first people in the Cavs community to loudly say that the team's goal should be the 1 seed, and that there is no reason why they shouldn't be as good of a regular season team as a Boston, a New York, a Milwaukee, or an Indiana. So I'm going to take the win. Thank you very much.
Yeah, go ahead. Pat yourself on the back. I mean, if you want to get into a optimistic homer measuring contest with me, I would not advise that.
I'm not. It's not a homer measuring contest. It's a seeing the landscape contest.
I want to talk about seeing the landscape. Listen to this top 8 from me. My prediction for the Eastern Conference. Cavs, Celtics, Knicks, Bucks, Sixers, obviously that went to crap, and Magic, Pacers, and Pistons. I had the confidence in the Pistons. It was pretty much that exact order, only with the Sixers and Magic dropping out. That was pretty damn good for me.
And you had absolutely no faith in the Pacers. You did not. You thought they were like a fringe play-in team. And
I had them in 7. 7's fine.
Yeah. You didn't believe in them at all, and they've been much better.
I slandered them relentlessly, which
they've been much better than you acted like they were,
and they have won me over because I am fair and I accept new information and I adjust from it. And
people love it. People love these these measuring contests. I bet.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. But I honestly, right now, I would say Indy's the 3rd best team in the East. When you consider current form and all that, I think that they are playing at that level. We'll see how that translates to the playoffs. Obviously, that's always a little bit of an unknown, but they've got a lot of depth. They've got wings. They can shoot. Their defense has been better this year. It's been middle of the pack. I believe they're 15th in defensive rating. So the one thing that I think we saw in today's game is defensive rebounding is not a strength for them. I believe they're 28th.
The Miles Turner curse.
Yeah, they are susceptible to giving up those extra possessions, which, when the Cavs are shooting 45% from 3, you don't want to do that because Dean Wade might miss the first look in the corner. He might miss the second, but he's not missing that third look. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how this plays out because the playoff picture is pretty much settled. There is still an outside chance, though, that it can be a little bit of a shakeup at 3 and 4. If the Knicks were to lose out these last 2 games against the Cavs and the Nets, and Indy were to win out, they actually would swap. However, the Knicks do have the tiebreaker with Indy, so they really just have to win 1 game. We'll see how they approach these last 2.
Yeah, well, it is pretty interesting, when you're looking at the way the Knicks are on a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah.
And by the way, count it, Knicks under 53. That's a cash out.
There you go.
I think it was 53 and a half actually, so even better. But they've lost 2 in a row, not 4 in a row. I'm sorry. They're 6 and 4 in their last 10, which is where I got the 4. You look at these last 2 games and, OG hasn't been playing. Josh Hart hasn't been playing. And I do wonder, Justin, if you're the Knicks, you might not feel great about playing the Cavs after the matchups you've had. But I know you don't feel great about playing the Boston Celtics after they have absolutely bombed you out of the gym at every opportunity. And, last year the Knicks got a lot of, I would say probably due credit for playing it out through 82, really going for it, trying to, not trying to game the system or anything like that. Do you think they might be thinking about it? Knowing,
I hope so.
Knowing that it's probably, for the rest of the league, playing the Cavs might be a little more appealing than playing the Boston Celtics.
I mean, I hope that's their mentality. Not because I'm afraid about playing Indy or anything like that. The concern over 1-2 against Indiana was purely in jest to start this podcast. But from a squashing narrative standpoint and changing perception standpoint, getting to play the Knicks would be amazing. I would absolutely love that. I would welcome it. I think that the Cavs are considerably better. I think they are much, much better prepared for all the talk about, what the core did and didn't do in that series. You got to remember, man, there was a lot of Ricky Rubio. There was a lot of Danny Green. Like it's the situation that they were put in from a depth standpoint was not ideal. And this is just such a better team now. This Knicks team doesn't resemble that team, but people still have concerns. They still have, demons and doubts as a result of that series. And I would love to put that to bed. So if that's the way it plays out, whether it's, them manufacturing that situation or just, how it happens to play out, I'll welcome that. I'll welcome any team in the Eastern Conference, man. Like, you're a contender. You got to have confidence that you're going to beat every single team in the league if you execute. And I think that's where we're at. I think the Cavs have the top end talent to win a championship. I think they have the supporting cast to win a championship. It's about, are they able to execute at a consistently high enough level to win all 4 rounds of the playoffs? And when they don't have it, are they able to snap back into it? Do they, do you fall behind by a bit because you give up an 8-0 run or a 16-0 run, right? Like, I think your ability to adjust on the fly and understanding that it is a game of runs and momentum does have a factor, and there are going to be quarters and stretches that don't go your way. That to me is going to be what ultimately defines success for the Cavs. I think they have enough, and that means I'm not scared of a single damn team.
Yeah, I don't even think it's about being scared at this point. I do think it's an interesting question of, by almost every metric, the Knicks are a better team than the Pacers right now. The post All-Star break numbers are pretty bleh for New York. They're 14-12 post All-Star break, but Brunson's missed 14 games in that stretch, and he is unquestionably their offensive engine. So, like, to some extent, you got to throw those numbers out. I mean, they're down to 22nd offensively in that stretch with a 112 offensive rating. But we know that a healthy Brunson does meaningfully change their offensive ceiling. But with that said, I just think it's a better matchup for the Cavs, this Knicks team. I think I'd rather, like, you could. Yes, I really want to beat the Knicks. I think from a quieting demons, writing the narrative kind of thing, it would feel really, really good. But I just think from a basketball perspective, the stuff that makes the Knicks really good is stuff that the Cavs are really well equipped to deal with. Mm-hmm. And the stuff that the Knicks are really well equipped to deal with isn't really what the Cavs do.
Right.
The Cavs can switch almost every action, and they can keep 2 bigs on the floor to pass off Cat and avoid him killing you on post-ups. He is not a movement shooter, so you're always able to close out on him with length. So he very rarely has gotten up a lot of threes against us. Brunson has not had his most efficient offensive outings against us. Their offensive rebounding is much less devastating than it was 2 years ago because of some of these personnel changes. Mikal Bridges is a guy that the Cavs have been very comfortable just letting Darius Garland guard. And they're not, and it's not the same kind of comfort as it is when they put Darius and let him switch on to Jason Tatum, where that's a thing they live with to try to avoid other pain. I think they're just kind of fine with Darius or Donovan guarding a guy who was traded for 5 first-round picks. So I think that the matchup is just better, and I would rather. I want this team to be tested. I think they would be favored against every team in the league. Or in the East, except for the Boston Celtics. They will not be favored in that series.
Yeah.
But I just think the matchup is better against the Knicks. And I go back to that Pacers team, obviously, like, tonight's not the most banner representation of like why they would be scary or challenging. But I do think the Pacers or the Knicks could beat the Cavs. I wouldn't say it's likely. I think the Cavs should be heavy favorites, but I don't think the Cavs have earned that kind of no shot a 50-win team can beat us equity yet in the postseason. Yeah. And I see, much like when we were doing that Knicks preview 2 years ago, and we've talked about it a lot, where I was really confident I picked Cavs in 5, but we did say if X, Y, and Z happen, if the things that the Knicks are really, really good at that the Cavs aren't that good at kind of come to pass, this could get upside down quick. And I do feel that way about the Pacers in the sense of Nesmith, Nembhard, McConnell. The ball pressure is relentless. They are allowed to play very, very physically. They've been a top 10 defense since after the All-Star break. They do get out and run. They do have guys who can, mash switches. Siakam, you can't switch on as easily as some of these other post players. If he gets Darius or Donovan on him, the spin cycle will begin, and he will draw fouls. He will get up shots. Even if he misses, he'll get second efforts because he's a good second jumper. And normally the guy guarding him is backpedaling 5 feet because they got an elbow to the chest. I just think they have enough stuff that makes the Cavs that the Cavs don't like dealing with.
Yeah. And also, I think they just are going to challenge the Cavs defense more. I understand that the Knicks are the better offensive team. They've been a terrific offensive team all season, but it's really coming from a shallow number of sources, right? It's mainly been the Brunson Cat pick and roll, pick and pop, 2-man game. And we've seen with Brunson out, Mikal Bridges has played a lot better because he's actually managed to have some touches. And OG has had these stretches where, he's playing the best basketball of his career. I don't know if that's going to continue to be the case with Jalen Brunson back. They don't have a lot of guys that initiate offense where Indiana really does. They do have a lot of guys that can initiate at a variety of positions. And I just think the Knicks, their offensive approach makes them predictable versus the highest level teams. And I think that is ultimately why they haven't won a game against the Cavs, Celtics, or Thunder.
They don't break your brain. They might really break your spirit with shot making and second efforts and things like that, but they don't break your brain.
And the funny thing is, we talk about how many guys are able to put pressure on your defense. And, Jalen Brunson's obviously phenomenal. He's an all NBA talent. He's able to be a very, very dynamic guard. But it's just interesting, and it goes to show you just kind of the difference offensive systems and overall playmaking can make. Because when I think about the Boston Celtics, Drew Holiday's not really going to cook you on the offensive end of the floor. Derek White is capable of cooking you with shots, but usually, that's within the rhythm of the offense. They're kicking it out to him. He's hitting a shot or he's hitting pull-ups in transition, that sort of thing. He's not going to test you in the way that a Jalen Brunson or Damian Lillard are. But because they have 5 guys that are able to initiate and they're all such smart passers and, they're able to be dynamic in that way, they can test you a whole lot more. Whereas, the Knicks, it really is Jalen Brunson initiating. And it's funny because we're going to see how Kenny Atkinson handles the playoffs. I think it's important to remember he's coached 5 playoff games. He's got a 1-4 record in the playoffs. I have a lot of faith in Kenny Atkinson, but we don't have a big sample size of how he's going to approach the playoffs. But when I'm looking at, these potential matchups, Indy, New York, I'm like, that's a series where I think Isaac Okoro would be really helpful. I think, that point of attack defense is really going to matter. Yeah. Isaac Okoro against the Boston Celtics, there's just not as much value throwing him on a Drew Holiday or a Derek White. I still think, there's a lot of ways that he can impact the game and I want to see him play, but that's not something where I say that's an Isaac Okoro series. We want to get crazy and look ahead to the Thunder. Yeah, I want Isaac Okoro making Shea work. You're not going to stop him, but please go make him work.
Yeah, it's it's going to be interesting seeing how orthodox he is, how much the lessons he's taken from playing from coaching for Steve Kerr and Ty Lue, two dudes who have unbelievably different philosophies.
Yep.
In terms of how they coach in the playoffs, in terms of how they use their rotations. I do think that's going to be a big learning. And the nice thing is, it hasn't, against the Knicks at least, it hasn't been a situation where it's like, if we don't play Okoro heavy minutes, we can't get stops.
Right.
That's the nice thing about that predictability of where the Knicks offense is. Pretty much every lineup has worked really, really well. I just pulled up the Knicks minutes leaders per game against the Cavs in their top 8, because as we know, they only play 8 guys. Who do you think has the best plus minus for the Knicks?
Oh, OG.
It's Jalen Brunson at minus 8.5 a game.
Huh, there you go.
There is no one who played regular minutes against this Cavs team that did really, really well in their minutes. Which I think is reflective of that. They got one fastball. They got and if it's like a Aroldis Chapman back in the day. If you could turn on it, you were gonna hit that thing out of the park, and he didn't have a lot of other choices. And I think I don't know. I like that Knicks matchup. I like what it might mean. I might want it more than is appropriate, and it's coloring some of my analysis here. But I just think if we didn't see the Knicks struggle as much as they did against every good team they played, then I would feel a little different, or maybe a little less sure that was the matchup I wanted. But I just think they're just really, really good at beating up teams that aren't as talented as them. And then when they play a team that is at their talent level or higher, it gets really hard for them stylistically.
I'm wrestling with myself a little bit because I'm trying to be honest and say, okay, if we did split the season series against the Knicks, and they did challenge them this series or this season, would I still want them as badly? Would I still be talking like I am? And I want to say yes. I don't know if that's true, but I want to beat this team, man. I feel about any team that we've been put up against, whether it's on preseason contender charts, whether it's the Magic are on a better trajectory than the Cavs, any slander that I've heard, any comparisons, I'm like Evan Mobley and Scotty Barnes, where I have taken that matchup personally ever since that loss. I want to go out there. I want to smoke them. I want to make a statement. I want I want all the smoke. I want every single matchup that people have compared us to. I want the Cavs to prove every single doubter wrong. So that's my mentality. But you're probably right that if they hadn't handled the Knicks as handedly as they have this season, maybe, I'm at 90% of where I am right now. But
I think it really is more reflective of how the Knicks have performed against other good teams. It's not just
true.
It's not a 3-game sample that we're analyzing here. It's a 10, 12-game sample. It's a 15-game sample against, the top 30% of the league, where it's just been it's been uphill sledding. There's a reason they're not going to cross the 53-win threshold. And it's because they haven't won enough of these. They've beaten up on the dregs. They've looked really, really good against the dregs. And then, when it came to playing the cream of the crop, it just hasn't been great. I will say,
man, to that point, there's only 3 teams in the Eastern Conference that have winning records against winning teams. The Cavs are 27-10. Boston is 24-13, and India is 19-17. The Knicks 15-22, Milwaukee's 15-21, Detroit is 12-25, Orlando's 11-25. Atlanta has been better than some of these teams against winning teams.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, good point. You know what? Give me them first round. Now I want them. Thank you for reminding me.
Give me Karras and George.
Yeah, thank you for
Come
reminding
home.
me of what that noon Thanksgiving game did to my mental health there. Yeah, give me them in the first round. I want the Atlanta Hawks. I've already decided it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun playoff. There's just a lot of there's a lot of interesting matchups up and down. I do think some chicanery in terms of how the standings play out for that 3-4. I'm gonna keep my eye on it. We should watch that game closely tomorrow night and see, how hard are the Knicks trying to win this.
Yeah. I mean, Brunson and Cap played 29 minutes tonight. That's the equivalent of Jared Allen playing 15 and getting pulled when you translate that to Tibbs minutes.
Yeah, it kind of is, I mean, Precious Chua is still clocking in at 40 plus. So, yeah, and obviously Brunson's coming off an injury, and
Yes.
So there's some obvious
I had
caveats
a joke I needed
here
to make. I was going to skew reality however I needed to.
Yeah, there's some obvious caveats here, but yeah, they have a lot of we're gonna really get a good chance to see what that second round series looks like. I really think it would be fun to play the Knicks. How you feeling, brother? We're almost there. Our next podcast will be after the regular season is over.
I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really, really confident. You're right. We don't have enough of a track record to say, yeah, we're certainly going to beat 50-win teams and stuff like that. I understand that point intellectually, but I also feel like we have seen this team, as much as we talk about how growth isn't linear, this has been so damn linear. We went from plan to the first round to the second round. I really feel like this team has everything that we need to have. And you know what? Honestly, if you're someone as a fan, the way you consume sports and the way that your fandom manifests, that you're like, I need to see a team prove it before I trust it, I respect that. I'm not going to sit here and tell anyone how to consume sports. But for me, I feel like everything is in place for this team to be great. And I'm not going to handle them with kid gloves. I'm not going to soften expectations at this point, because last couple of years, I had big regular season expectations, but I kept saying they don't have enough playoff experience to make a run. What did I say before game one of this season? This is the first year that I feel this team has a legitimate chance to walk away with an NBA championship at the end of the season. My confidence, and I said, what are we going to learn in this year? Whether it's a 5% chance or greater. I think it's a lot greater now, and I'm going to...
What's the percentage you'd put on it?
I'd give us a 40% chance against Boston. I think if you play that series 10 times, we win 4 of them. OKC, I would give it as a true toss-up. So
about
don't know
20% if you were going to do some very fast math to get through it all.
Yeah. Let's put it that's probably where I'm at. But for me, rather than I'm going to hold back my expectations until they've proven it, I think they've given me enough that I am going to expect this team to be great until I see otherwise. And, that doesn't mean 100%. I'm not sitting here saying guaranteeing a championship or anything like that. But I do feel incredibly confident that they can challenge any team. And that if they do lose, I think it's going to be because it was a great series and, whoever the other team was just out executed them. I just don't think that's happening in the first 2 rounds, man. I think that this team is ready. Yeah.
And it's also, I mean, I'm furiously knocking on wood right now, but it really is shaping up to be the first time in this Cavaliers era, other than those play-in games 3 years ago, where the team mostly looked like they were whole. They weren't dealing with Darius, who I remember at that Magic game we went to, game 1, the first time he got really whacked, he immediately went to the bench and had to get a heating pad on, had to get the wedge, and we're like, gah, and Donovan didn't score 20 for a month going in because his knee wasn't right. And then, obviously no one could have foreseen Jarrett's rib getting broken. So that's its own thing. But I feel like this is the best physical shape the team's been in going into the postseason in this Cavaliers era. And that's very exciting. I mean, there really is not a lot of room for, to your point about kid gloves, not a lot of room for excuses,
No.
they're either gonna meet the moment or they're not.
Yep, totally agree. And that's whether it's fair or not. When you're this good and expectations are this high, there's consequences for every step along the way, right? Like as much as we believe that this is a team with a large window and a long runway. Like you think back to the Heatles, man, like how many times was the blueprint on the line there? Like that's just the nature of these really good teams. And that doesn't necessarily mean coming up short results in a massive shakeup, but there is a lot of pressure. There is,
the Cavs blueprint has survived a lot of this kind of stress. And so like to your point,
but when you're
eventually,
this good, when you're this good from an front office standpoint, you owe it to the roster that you've assembled to always be looking at, okay, how are we maximizing this? Are we taking advantage of every single opportunity? I think they've done a great job of that. Man, it's going to be a lot of fun. This is I'm really, really excited for this playoff run. And you know what? I'm happy everything played out the way that it did. I think them getting stress tested in the way that they did the last couple playoff series, I think it revealed some shortcomings, revealed where they needed to improve internally and all that. It kind of would be fun, man, to have, just kind of a laugher of a series like we used to have back in the day. I want to see that in the first round.
I don't know if we get to have that, though,
I don't know if we get to have that, but you know what I'm looking forward to? Playing a playoff series against a team that's not a top 3 defense. Like, I think we the
Knicks weren't that good 2 years ago.
They were all right. You're correct though. I don't think they were top 3. But,
no, they weren't even close.
God damn it.
Sorry.
That weakens my point. Don't weaken my point.
They were
real time.
19th.
Felt spiritually. Where were they in April?
Let me check post All-Star break. Let's see if we can save you. They were
at least middle of the pack.
They were 18th. So wing and a miss.
You know what? Spiritually, they felt like a good defense.
And by the way, the Orlando Magic are the second best defense in the NBA. So we very well might play them.
You know what? Maybe we will. Hey, we blew them out by 40 in Orlando. We can still be great offensively there. But yeah, you know what? It would be nice to play a good defense, and I'm going to stick with that point, even though you have thoroughly disproved it. Thank you
brother.
For that, buddy.
I take no pleasure in doing these things to you.
You know what? We're accountable to ourselves. We're accountable to each other, and we're accountable to our audience. And I think that's what makes this a fun show. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of that review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.